don't love me quietly, do it with intensity, or you'll miss the point. When with everything you stray, oh, there's no love to be gained. 'Cause we all need a civilized.
Good morning, agents.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I have asked you here so that I may brief you on what is perhaps the greatest James Bond shooter ever made, at least during the 6th generation. May I present 007 Nightfire for the GameCube. When you play a 007 game, there are certain things you expect. Otherwise, it just becomes a run-of-the-mill shooter with 007 pasted on the box. Luckily, this game really presents itself as a story and experience that feels very much like a part of the 007 universe. Everything from the gun barrel sequence, to the opening title scene with beautiful women and guns, to everything else about this game. The main villain of this Bond adventure is Raphael Drake, head of the Phoenix Corporation.
What is your political crime?
Well, unfortunately, his corporation has stolen a powerful missile guidance device. In the hands of Phoenix, this could become a very dangerous weapon that would threaten global security. So as James Bond, you must go on missions to find out what Drake and the Phoenix Corporation are planning, then stop them. Nightfire's graphics are better than its predecessor, Agent Underfire, and of course, better than other previous 007 games given the improved hardware. But it's still not the most impressive use of GameCube graphics. Don't get me wrong, the cinematic cutscenes look great. The gameplay graphics, not so much. The environments look good with decent details, and even include some strategic shortcuts for alternate paths. But the characters have some very noticeable blockiness. Otherwise, they are good for 2002 graphics. This game uses actor Pierce Brosnan's likeness for Bond, and Eurocom did a great job in this area with bringing Pierce Brosnan's face into this game. So unlike Agent Underfire, Bond actually looks like Brosnan, even if it doesn't sound like him since he didn't provide the voice for Bond. But one last thing about the visual presentation. I don't know if this has happened to anyone else, but these days, I've been noticing that gameplay cutscenes will have glitches of characters who have left the scene or haven't entered the scene yet, freezing in mid-step and being there in the background, just frozen. It doesn't interfere with the game itself, but it's still an odd glitch. Not sure how that happened. For the audio area, this game uses fantastic sound effects for all its weapons, and there's good voice acting all around, even with Pierce Brosnan not actually voicing the Bond that's modeled after him.
You saved my life. How will I repay you?
I'm just doing my job.
If I live through this, I'll need a large sake and one hell of a massage.
Now the music may be kind of over the top, but it still fits the Bond universe. It works with the stealth portions and makes the gunfights in single player and multiplayer more exciting and Bond-like. But to be real with you guys, it is still rather over the top. But it all helps the gameplay to be the type of gameplay you would expect from a Bond game. The single player is a good mix of shooting action, stealth, driving, and even one on-rails shooting level. The mission mix feels all-encompassing to Bond adventures, and 007's car is packed with all the usual refinements.
Your guy is probably gonna be dead before it's out of warranty.
Nightfire includes a ton of Bond-like gadgets to use in your missions. Taser car keys, night vision shades, a lighter that turns into a camera, and of course, the classic laser watch. Awesome. You also have access to a lot of modern day and not too distant future weapons. Some weapons are more fun to use against your enemies than others, but it's an overall good selection. And almost all of them have an alternate firing mode. My preference is to use the Samurai laser gun or the Ames 20 gun. But most of the game has you using more real-world weapons, which are still cool to use. The game controls pretty well, even though you can't melee with your gun in hand. But since this is a game from 2002, that's a forgivable flaw. And it's not the only similarity this game shares with FPS games from the 90s and early 2000s. There are also 3 levels of difficulty for each mission too. You know the drill by now. Higher difficulty means more objectives and the enemies are better at killing you. But as a 007 agent, you have options of how to tackle most of the levels. That kind of freedom is what fans who have been playing Bond shooters since GoldenEye on the N64 really like to have in a game with 007 in the title. If you feel like being Rambo, you can run through these levels guns blazing. Or if you prefer to be more like a spy, you can use your stealth, gadgets, and brains to get through a level. Makes you feel smart too.
I'm smart, unlike someone we know.
Arnold is of course referring to the enemy AI. The enemies are often ruthless in trying to kill you, but usually at the cost of their own safety. Some of them are actually smart and get behind cover first, but most of them will just stand there and shoot you until you shoot them, occasionally moving from side to side to dodge your shots. It's pretty similar to the AI in Medal of Honor Rising Sun. So while there are plenty of aggressive enemies to shoot, there are also rather stupid enemies. This could be seen as a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you like to play first-person shooters. If you prefer the more old-school FPS style, then you'll love shooting up these enemies, but fans of more modern shooters may find the suicidal AI disappointing. But enough about single player, let's talk about the best Bond multiplayer ever, that is Nightfire's multiplayer. First of all, there's a great selection of Bond-esque modes like Uplink and GoldenEye Strike, mixed with some standard FPS multiplayer modes like Deathmatch and Capture the Flag. Modes that can be played on a bunch of cool spy movie maps from the game, and some maps made especially for multiplayer. I really like how these maps are designed to have a great mix of open spaces for long-range gunfights and narrow corridors for more close-quarters combat. But with the size of these maps, if you're playing alone or with only one other human player, you'll want to include bots. Yes, this game has multiplayer bots. You can include up to 6 bots in all maps and modes, with the exception of the Ravine map. You can customize their health, gameplay personality, and other traits. It's a surprising amount of customization for multiplayer bots that you don't see these days. These bots and all human players can play as characters from the game and certain classics from Bond films. Yes, that does mean Knick-Knack, Jaws, and Oddjob for starters, and yes, you can use Oddjob's hat as that frisbee of death. The only problem is that when you have 4 human players and 6 bots at once, it tends to cause noticeable slowdown, mostly in the smaller maps. But the slowdown isn't as bad as Perfect Dark's similar issue. Maybe that's due to less bots or more powerful hardware, but either way, not too bad. Just something to be aware of. Oh, and for some reason, you can't have good guys fighting other good guys, even in free-for-all modes. It's kind of a bizarre choice by Eurocom that's rather limiting. But at least there's plenty of bad guys to choose from, and they can kill each other just fine. Okay, back to the good parts. The multiplayer lets you use all the weapons from the single player mode, plus some turrets and exploding barrels that can help you get some big kills. And there's a small selection of gadgets you can use in the game too, mainly the cell phone grapple gun. But then there's the remote control mini vehicles. Oh man, these kick ass and can only be used in multiplayer. The mini tank and helicopter are these tiny death machines that will help you rack up kills quick, and because of their size, they're hard for enemies to shoot down. But this is balanced by the vehicles being a little difficult to control, especially the tank, and that you can be shot while standing still controlling them. Let me tell you, I remember so many fun times of playing this game with friends. Chances were if we weren't playing Melee, we were playing this, and it's just as much fun today as it was a decade ago. That's something I can say about the game as a whole. I know GoldenEye is a legendary Bond game for what it did for the FPS genre, and sure, this game does have its issues like dated graphics and the full party frame rate thing, but 007 Nightfire is still my favorite Bond game ever. I see it as being better than every Bond game that came before and after it. I highly recommend any Bond fan to pick this one up.
Happy New Year, James.
Happy New Year indeed, Dominique.